start with the presentation learning advising building teacher autonomy to promote learner autonomy. Our presenter is Leticia Adelina Ruiz Guerrero. Adelina is a social psychologist, holds an MA in ELT, and is about to complete her PhD in education with a focus on learner and teacher autonomy from the University of Nottingham. She is an academic, coordinator of the program Programa Certificado de Inglés at the Language Department, head of the Self-Access Lab, and main tutor for the Diplomado in Language Learning Advising at ITESO, the Jesuit University in Guadalajara. Please give her a round of applause to welcome.
Was suggested to give me in English, and I did actually prepare this in English, but I want to ask you if you wanted to do this in English or in Spanish, because so far everything I've heard throughout the event has been in Spanish. Entonces, les pregunto, ejerzan su autonomía. ¿Hacemos esto en inglés o en español? En inglés. ¿Qué dicen los demás? Yep. Alrighty. Let's do this then. Okay. So just to be clear, this is the summary for this very short presentation that we're going to have today. I'm basically going to tell you a little bit about our experience in the Diplomado for Language Learning Advising that we have started at ITESO in Guadalajara. And well, let me just get started. Not just tell you what I'm going to tell you, but actually tell you, right? All right. Okay, so I don't know you, but to me this is one of the phrases that sort of changed the way we do things in advising. The problem with training to be an advisor means that if I'm a teacher, I have to let go of my teacher self to be able to become a successful advisor. I don't know if you have found that difficulty in your journey. I know that there are a lot of advisors here, or people who are training or who work in self-access centers. And it's a challenge if you come from teaching to then have to change your hat from being the teacher who knows the answer to becoming the advisor who is supposed to allow the person to discover for themselves what they need and how to get to them. So this stop teaching students is a big challenge for some of us. And I at least know some people who struggle with this, and I'm sure that you know some people who struggle with this. It's part of the training that we have to go through, okay? This is why it's not something that you just wake up one day and decide to be an advisor and that's it, right? Okay. So what we have is that in order for us to really do this kind of work, well, there has to be a certain awareness on our part of what it means. For example, if I, as a teacher, want to promote autonomy in my students, well, I have to start by, for example, actually wanting to promote autonomy in my students. Because it's one thing to say that I want to do it, and it's another thing to actually be able to do it. And you know that sometimes what that means is to be able to let go. It's hard to let go. It's our job to be responsible for everything. We feel that if things go well, they went well because of the work that we did. If things don't go well, we feel terrible because somehow we failed our students, right? So this genuine desire to promote autonomy should be part of that journey that a teacher goes through in doing this kind of work. The other thing that is really important is that you have to actually believe that the students can do this without you. If you're certain that they cannot do it without you, then guess what? They are never going to be able to do it without you, because you are convinced that without your help, it's not going to happen. So one of those shifts in your mind that has to happen is this being aware of the possibility that the student can actually survive without you. Can you imagine that? That's scary for some teachers, like, what, do you mean that I'm not the center of the universe? I am not here to save all these poor souls? Well, not always. Or if you really want to encourage autonomy in your students, you have to step away from that mindset. And one of the things that I consider one of the most important things is that if you want to be someone who promotes autonomy, then you have to start by being self-aware of who you are as a learner to begin with. If you understand what it took you to learn something, then you might be closer to becoming a teacher who can promote autonomy in her or his own students. Okay? Without that step, it's like talking the talk but not really walking the walk. You know what I mean? You're saying that you're promoting autonomy, but you kind of are not. Okay. So on that line, there is a lot of research that's been done on this, point of having the teacher being the first one who starts off in this journey. Over here I have 3 quotes from 4 different writers. You probably recognize some of these names. So here's the thing. If as a teacher or an advisor, you really want to develop autonomy in your learners, what we're learning is that you first need to start with your own autonomy. Assert it, own it, know what it means for you to begin with. Okay? There is a clear interdependence between learner autonomy and teacher autonomy. If there is no teacher autonomy, then how can you promote learner autonomy? And finally, what Little says is that language teachers are more likely to succeed in promoting learner autonomy if their own education has encouraged them to be autonomous. I don't know you, but I was educated here in Mexico. And that means that I wasn't really raised to be an autonomous learner or an autonomous person. Mexican moms and Mexican teachers, we tend to be there, that's how we see it, very positive. We are there for our kids, we are there for our children, we are there for our students, but sometimes being there just means not letting the person learn to do on their own. You're solving problems for your kids, you're basically telling them what to do because you care. You're not doing it from a bad place, you really care for them. So you protect them, you tell them what works, what doesn't work, because you want them to succeed. Well, the problem with that is that it ends up, turning out generation after generation, people who are not very good at doing things on their own. That's a cultural thing, and we're fighting against that when we do this kind of work. And you're not just fighting against that as the teacher in front of a class or as the advisor in front of a student in your self-access center. You're fighting against that as a person, you yourself. So where do you start if you yourself have not had a lot of experience in developing autonomy in your own life? So how do you teach someone else to do this if you yourself don't know what it takes? To no fault to your own, you probably have, the desire for this. This is why you work in a self-access center. This is why you're training as an advisor. The problem is that somehow you have to break through a lot of habits and a lot of things that you learned because you were modeled this all your life, unconsciously. So, to carry on with this, so if we want to change learners, if we want learners who are more autonomous, the first thing that needs to happen is that we need to start with teachers. It is about giving the teachers the experience to live the pedagogical strategies for autonomy as students, to reflect about all of this as teachers, and then to experience all of this in the actual, reality of trying it out that is going to make a difference. Otherwise, well, we're going to talk a lot about autonomy, but then you're never going to really know what it feels like in the flesh. And some of the teachers here just recognize themselves in the pictures because they're part of our diplomado, our first cohort. Some of them are here, and they're seeing themselves in the pictures. Sorry, I didn't ask for your permission to put the pictures.
Granted.
All right, so the thing about advising, the way we want to do advising is that we want this to be more than just, solving problems. You want advising to be what Cato and Minard called a transformational process. You know what? You want the person's life to actually change because they have gone through this process, okay? And so, for example, the way they see advising and this methodology that is now the one that we're using in a lot of self-access centers to train our advisors is to do with not just teaching the students strategies, not just telling them these are your activities, these are your worksheets, get on with it, you'll be autonomous if you manage to decide which of the two to choose from. It's more than that. It's supposed to aim to challenge their beliefs so that they understand that it's their responsibility and not the teachers or not the advisors. If I fail or succeed, it's not because you did something to me, but it's because I made the right choices. I put in the work. I did what I was supposed to do. It's supposed to empower learners because it promotes changes in thinking. And it results in transformation, or at least that's what we want. So here's the thing. If you apply this same model to the teacher's training in advising, then you have that same transformation happening in the advisors who are, becoming these people who are going to accompany learners in their journey. What Peter and Manner suggests is that there's a process of reflection that goes from a getting started point to little by little understanding better what it takes to develop autonomy until you get to the point as an advisor where you really understand what it takes to transform, to go from not autonomous to autonomous. I'm going to go a little bit faster because I only have less than 5 minutes. So the point that I'm here to tell you about is this work that we've done together as a community of practice with the idea that we would experience autonomy for ourselves first in how we train to become language learning advisors so that we could understand better what we were aiming to put our students through. How do you know what it takes to make a plan and follow through? Well, you make a plan and follow through and see what happens with your own thinking, with your own planning, okay? So these are some of the characteristics of this scheme that we put together to work on. And the idea here was that it was something that was collaborative, that we would all take part in, that we would all make decisions, and we would have a lot of chances to reflect about our process. What was happening to us, how we were doing this, and more important, how we could support each other as a community of practice. There's a short video here that you're going to be able to watch once you get access to this little presentation on your own. All it does, it shows you the type of work that we got to do during the diplomado, where people work together, shared ideas, and basically build knowledge together. And these are some of the characteristics of this diplomado that we are now on the second year of running, and with 3 groups at this point. The idea is to have an experience where people get to share knowledge, build a sense of community, build trust, which is a big issue when you're dealing with these type of things. And we do this in a blended modality, which means that we only meet a few hours a month, on a Saturday or a Friday for 4 hours. And the rest of the work is self-directed work so that the advisors themselves experience what it's like to go and try and do something on their own. And, you know, agree on times and get things done and basically do what we expect students to do when they're developing their own autonomy. These are some of the references that I can share with you. Probably the most important book there is The Reflective Dialogue by Joe Maynard and Satoru Kato. We're going to have a talk with them this afternoon. I encourage you to come and listen to them because they are the experts. They basically, you know that expression, they wrote the book about this? They actually wrote the book about this. So it's nice to hear things from the people who did all this work and all this research. And that's basically all from me.
So we have a bit of like 10 minutes to get some questions or comments. As the participant told us, some of you are involved in this process, so you can also share with the others if you have any comments. So if you have time, just raise your hand and we will give you the mic.
If you have questions, you can ask them in Spanish if you want. Aquí están presentes 4 graduadas de este primer grupo del diplomado. Pueden decir, de hecho les van a platicar su experiencia. Tienen una mesa redonda en la que van a, pues básicamente contarnos cómo fue esta experiencia que ellos vivieron en este proceso de prepararse como language learning advisors. Sí.
Hi, my name is George, and my question is this.
Do you think there's a valid difference between teacher and trainer and advisor? I mean, isn't the responsibility of any teacher to promote autonomy? So why do we have this difference between the teacher in the classroom, the teacher in the e-learning? That's my question.
Great. It is our job. The question is, I think we can't do it all from the same platform. I think that's the difference, basically. You know, the student is supposed to make certain decisions about how he wants to get either information or interaction with others. And one way to, you know, achieve his goals is to go to a classroom and work with a teacher. And in the classroom, there's more responsibility on certain aspects on the side of the teacher and a little bit of less responsibility on certain aspects on the side of the student.
Why? I mean, why we're talking about less responsibility,
Yeah.
more responsibility?
Because we still don't understand that that's our job, you know? It is supposed to be part of the job of the teacher to train students to become more autonomous. But isn't that also the job of parents? And we still have kids who are 30 years old and who are still living with their parents. Or, you know, parents solving problems for them, however old they are. It starts, I think, from this cultural point where we're not trained to let go. So you assume that responsibility. As a teacher, I'm responsible for this. I will make sure that they learn because it's my job and I'm good at it. I'll give you answers. I'll tell you what to do because I know the right answers. So if that doesn't happen in the classroom, then you need other spaces where that could happen. If we had more teachers who promoted autonomy, maybe the self-access centers wouldn't have as many customers as we do, because more work would be done in the classroom. So it has to start somewhere. You know, it can either start with the teachers or it can start with your advisors in the self-access center. It doesn't matter where, as long as we start. As long as we do start promoting autonomy. It's something else.
Well, I just wanted to add to what Adelina just said, as a member of that first cohort, is that that's the reason why we're calling it a transformation, and it's not an exaggeration. Once you learn and you start analyzing yourself as a teacher, and you want to move from that place into being an advisor, and granting that freedom of decision and understanding that it is liberating for you as a teacher and liberating for the student to be able to draw a very personal plan and goals and be held responsible for that success, that's a transformation. And it's easier said than done because it requires a lot of personal work. We're going to talk about that more. Yeah.
I don't know if we have time for anything else.
I just want to say that it also has to do with our identity as Mexicans. Things are different in different cultures. So we need to move towards that point in which we are autonomous in every sense in our lives.
And so maybe it's only a political issue, an institutional issue. Maybe if learners are autonomous, the business is going to end. So I don't know.
That's what I'm hoping for. One day to not have to worry about.
Coming to work at 8 a.m. on time, you know? Can I stay home for half an hour because no one's gonna come? That'd be great, you know? Or come because you want to, not because somebody told you to come.
I would also like to round it off with the recommendation that Adelina gave about reading the reflective dialogue of Sato and Miner, because I think that the book really outlines the idea of how is it different to be a teacher than to be an advisor, and what is the specialization in the methodology and the language that you use as a teacher and as an advisor, and why there is a difference. So I would really recommend reading that book because, as she said, it is the book that sets the precedent on how we are working as advisors. Again, thank you very much. It is very interesting to see other diplomado working in Mexico and how it works, how the team works together, building this horizontal teamwork is also very difficult in the Mexican society. So I think that you are doing such a great job. I congratulate you as a team. And now I give you your diploma for your participation with the Education of Learning, Advising, Building Teacher Autonomy to Promote Learner Autonomy. Thank you very much, Adelina.
Thank you very much.